The 10th edition of an event honoring military veterans, a look at bridges in East Baton Rouge Parish, and a conversation with the Mayor Pro Tem. Roll it, Kirk. All right, we begin tonight's episode with a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Lamont Cole, Metro Council member, longtime educator here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Man, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Just happy to be alive. Happy to be alive, man.
Well, we got a lot of business to get to. First up, what is your grade on how the city is doing right now?
My grade on how the city is doing, that's a loaded question, but I would give the city, I look at the city in a number of different areas.
Okay.
All right, and so if I had to give the city a grade in terms of the areas I look at in terms of education, infrastructure, healthcare, crime, and things of that nature, I would give the city probably a C+.
A C+.
Right now.
With the lagging parts of that being what? Obviously crime.
Yeah, crime. And then education is a challenge in our city for a number of different reasons.
All right.
And so, until we start to address some of those systemic issues that are affecting both those areas, and then crime and education being connected to each other, I think we still have a lot of work to do.
We're up 100% in terms of homicides last year to this year. To what do you attribute that spike?
Well, I think we had to anticipate the spike just based on a number of different factors that have taken place over a 20-year period of time. See, people don't like to look at, the root causes of some of the issues and some of the things we're seeing currently right now. I think if we go back to about 2008, right, and we start to think about what was happening in our school systems at that time, a lot of people seem to not talk about, may not have forgotten, but not talk about the large exodus of students who left, right, the public school system as a result of schools being taken from us by the state. Now, to the state's credit, I think the pressure that was applied at the time in terms of schools not doing what was necessary to serve children, I think was necessary, right? But I think some of the formula at the time where schools were completely taken from communities and children and families who had an attachment to and a respect for institutions in the community that were known as schools were taken from them. There was a disconnect and a breakdown in our communities around that.
That's interesting. So you're going back, what, 16 years?
Yeah, I'm going back 18 years. 16 yeah, correct.
Years, and you're saying the fragmentation of what the system did then created the realities we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think so. Nothing happens overnight. I think, we would like to believe that, there's an easy fix for a problem, but oftentimes when we see challenges in our community, they didn't happen easily. They happen over an extended period of time. We're talking about generational issues that have taken place over a period of time. When we think about, the changes in leadership in terms of our mayor in 2004, and then, we got a new mayor in 2005, and then right after we get a new mayor, we start to see a huge shift in how we go about education children. Think about it this way. From 1997 to 2008, there were only 3 charter schools in the city of Baton Rouge. In 2008, we started to see an influx of charter organizations, charter networks coming into our town, and we started to see a disconnect between how those charter networks were connecting with families in the community. And so we began to see a distrust. Now, what we have to understand and think about is this. When there is a distrust in any mechanism or any leg of what families consider to be the government's responsibility, there's a distrust in the government in totality, right? So that means if there's a distrust in education, there's a distrust in law enforcement. If there's a distrust in law enforcement, there's a distrust in healthcare. And a lot of people don't see those connectors.
Did not think you were going to give me that perspective on this, but
I'm going deep now. I'm going deep.
I got about 90 seconds. So I want to ask you about this, and because this is a longer conversation. There is a debate right now over a potential change in the plan of government. Where do you stand on that right now?
In terms of which change? There are a number of different things that were passed.
Pick one, because we've seen this be something that's kind of led by Councilman Gode. He's one of the people behind it. If you are looking at changes that you think are in the best interest of this community, what would you say?
Well, I think one of the the low-hanging fruit, of course, is some of the language, the outdated language in the plan of government that existed.
Like what?
Referring to every council person as a he, right? Pronouns have needed to be changed in the plan of government for a long time. And I know you're talking about some of the deeper issues when we start thinking about a city manager, when we start thinking about at-large seats, when we start thinking about
we need a city
term
manager?
limiter. Do I think we need a city manager? No, I don't think we need a city manager. I think we have a chief administrative officer who pretty much serves the same function.
Yeah.
I think we have to be very, very careful when we shift the plan of government to mirror the state and then or the federal government.
Look, I got to get you to come back here. You threw a couple things at me, and I didn't have enough time to get into. You kind of rode the clock out on me.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna bust you up if you let me.
All right, we're going to talk about bridges with Fred Rayford next. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right.
Well, a week ago, we had a conversation about the bridge in Baltimore, and it led to what we may be doing here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And the Director of Transportation and Drainage at EBR is Fred Rayford, the most informed man I know about roads and bridges and all that stuff in the parish.
Well, I hope to be, that's for sure. I mean, because it's enough issues that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that you better be informed.
Okay,
That's no
well,
question.
let's start with the most obvious question. How are bridges here? People saw that and it makes you wonder, how are we doing here? How are bridges here?
Well, we're doing our annual inspection right now, working with DOTD, because they are the ones who we have to also inspect our bridges.
Yeah.
We have over 330 bridges that EBR is responsible for maintaining.
Right.
And from what their last year's report looked at, we're probably about 25%, 30% of the bridges may be at what they deem poor condition. Doesn't mean it's going to fall down or anything like that, but needs to be looked at from getting designs ready or making changes to replace the bridge from the funding mechanism. And quite frankly, we do use the state transportation fund that the DOTD does provide to us, but we only get $1.5 million a year. And I'll tell you, most bridges that we're replacing today cost $2 to $3 million to repair. So it's never enough money, but we prioritize which ones need to be done, and we try to address that from a structural standpoint and a capacity standpoint.
You know, Mayor Pro Tem Cole was here a minute ago and we talked about crime. Right under crime, just before weather, is traffic as a discussion point if you live in East Baton Rouge Parish, is what you talk about, how bad the traffic is. And there's a lot of construction going on, but people are frustrated because it doesn't ever seem to end. So what encouragement would you give people watching who live here that, hey, brighter days are coming?
Well, you know, anytime you have construction, there are going to be some inconveniences, no question about it.
Yeah.
You know, right now, most of the issues are on the interstate, but people are diverting. We know that they're diverting because we're looking at our traffic counts on some of our major roadways, and we see the numbers going up. What we're doing is we set up a plan to address the signals, try to get more traffic through those intersections at a time, particularly on the major corridors, which I think we have 17 that we're working with. And quite frankly, their peak times have been some struggles, but most of the time, peak time in the afternoons particularly. And I ride these roads a lot because I want to make sure I see it. I want to know that I felt it, so when somebody gets frustrated about it, I can say, I get it. I've been there, done that. So
when are we going to open Behringer Foreman again?
I have just sent a letter out to all the homeowners on the Behringer Road area. We were working with the Corps. I can't work any longer with that. I want to move forward. We're going to be advertising the project this month and hope to get bids in sometime in May. And when May gets in, get under construction, get council approval. We're going to be sometime in November before you see it. Because it's going to take 3 months. I know.
What's the damage?
A lot of under the bridge.
It was hit. It was hit. Yeah, by there's a barge with a dozer or something on it?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And then the Piku interchange.
Well, that's going to be a long, drawn-out project, and I say that because there are different phases. We're in phase 2 right now, which is widening the existing roadway, tear out the old roadway, and put it back in together. They also will be working on the railroad crossing, and they're constructing the new bridge already over Bayou Fountain.
Yeah.
And Wards Creek.
Yeah.
Wards Creek. So that's taking place. The last phase to get done is to tie in all the ramps from the interstate to come in. But you're probably going to look at 2025 before you'll see everything where it needs to be.
So 2025, it could be ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, what about Jefferson Highway, which is always a migraine creator? So what about that?
Well, right now it's currently being rehabbed by DOTD.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I know that too. Yeah, I've seen it. We've been working very closely with DOTD and because they're doing the repairs of the work that we've agreed to by the road transfer.
Okay.
And once it's finished, in which that's the section from Drusilla all the way to Airline Highway, because it's not going to go away. It's still a ways off to be done. That will hope to be done before the end of the year.
Where can people go to learn about these projects right now to get updates? Is it at the MoveBR website, or where is it?
No, most of these, well, you would probably need to go to DOTD.
Okay.
Because they will have, because they're overseeing the construction.
Right.
They would have the websites, the information to put up. I get a lot of calls about it, and I get a lot of, and when I go to the public meetings in that area, that's probably the number 2 question they ask.
So look, we're going to get Fred to come back here, and we're going to, on one of the big screens, we're going to put a map of Baton Rouge. I want to ask you guys about what roads you want him to answer questions on, and because you see, he knows, and we'll get him to answer questions about roadways and construction going on and how long you have to wait. I'm pretty bummed about that Behringer Foreman information you just gave me, but I have to deal with it. Yeah. But we'll talk with Fred about what you need to know about road work here in East Baton Rouge Parish, man. Anything else you want to tell people before we get out of the segment?
No, I know it's frustrating sometimes, particularly with traffic, but, you know, and I'm going to be honest, it's probably going to get worse because when we start moving forward with a lot more construction, you know, people paid their tax dollars.
Yeah.
And I want to be sure that their tax dollars are being spent on the roadways.
Depressing and encouraging at the same time. Let's talk with Colonel Henry Whitehorn next.
Can you see me?
Recently here in Louisiana, we had an election for sheriff in Caddo Parish. And the gentleman elected there that you see on the screen behind me is the former state police superintendent, former member of the U.S. Marshals, and someone that I'm pretty happy to call a friend of mine, Henry Whitehorn. I call him Colonel Whitehorn from his days at state police. So, man, I asked you this the night you won the election. How many times are you going to have to win an election in Caddo Parish, huh?
Well, it seems like it was going on forever. You know, we won in the runoff, and then we did a recount where we won again, and then we had to have a special election. So 3 times a charm. Well, I'm just excited that it's done.
It's interesting because you've spent so many years in law enforcement in Louisiana, and obviously you're a native of that part of the state. When the election was over, were you automatically expecting there to be a recount and something to come out of it after you won by only 1 vote?
I kind of felt that it would be a recount requested. I was still confident that the 1 vote margin should have been the final count. But even with the recount, we ended up with a 1 vote margin. And I've always been taught that if you win by 1 vote, you win. But that was not the case here in Caddo Parish.
It's interesting. It is one of the best examples of why every vote matters, because you won by 1 vote, and then you go through the process in the courts, and then obviously a couple weekends ago you won again in pretty convincing fashion. What have you learned from this process, Colonel, after all of this, deciding to run for office and then having it go this way?
Well, you know, it helped not only me, but I think it helped this country understand that your voices do count. And this 1 vote margin, I've had so many folks come up to me and say, you know, that was my vote. I was the difference in this election. And I have to tell them, you're all right, because your voice does matter. And elections have consequences. And so when it was taken away by the courts, I think it motivated a lot of people about the injustice that had taken place in their mind. And it wound up being a 4,000 vote margin plus in the special election.
So, you know, you're on the cusp of starting this new position. You began the 1st of June as the sheriff of Caddo Parish. What's your vision for that office and for your parish?
Yeah, we start July 1st.
July 1st, thank you.
Yeah, July 1st. And, you know, I've got a couple issues that's priority for me. Number one is the violent crime that's plaguing this community and all over the country, actually, but in particular this community here. And the perception that crime is up that goes along with that violence. And we know that the numbers are down overall in crime, but people perceive that we've in a crime crisis due to the violent crime that's plaguing many of our communities. And then we have a jail overcrowding issue that we're going to have to tackle so that we can, you know, not only make the environment safe for the inmates, but for our deputies in particular that's working in that facility. And then with the jail overcrowding, there's different operations and that we'd like to deploy in this community that we can't because we don't have the space to put anybody if we do go out and try to get some of these violent offenders off our streets.
What is your opinion of the law enforcement profession now? Obviously, there are a number of executives in law enforcement around the country that you have had the opportunity to mentor. You brought Noble here, the National Organization of Black Law Executives. What is your opinion of law enforcement as a profession right now?
We still got work to do. You know, back when President Obama was president, he formed a committee on 21st century policing, and they produced a report that, you know, we started utilizing the recommendations in that report, and then we kind of got away from it. I still look at that as a model for law enforcement as it relates to community engagement and building the trust back into these communities that have lost trust in law enforcement due to several incidents that has taken place over this country. But we have to be aware that folks are concerned about our legitimacy. We have to be concerned about the wellness of our officers.
Yeah.
We have to be concerned that our citizens have a role to play in law enforcement. And so that's the things that I'm looking at to make sure that we are Noble is the conscience of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And so we got to make sure that we're doing the right thing the right way for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And to add to that, it has to look right.
Well, Colonel, we appreciate you taking the time on a busy morning as we record this to talk with us about you embarking on this new journey. This won't be the last time, and I'll see you the next time I'm in Shreveport.
I'm looking forward to it, Clay, and thank you for having me this morning.
You got it. Up next, a conversation about an event that honors veterans. We'll tell you all about it next. Well, this year marks the 10th edition of Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em. It's a fundraiser benefiting military veterans. We've been doing it for 11 years, but we skipped 2020. Remember that thing called COVID? Well, it's back, and it's benefiting Special Forces Charitable Trust for about the third year. And joining us is H.B. Gillum. He's all the way in North Carolina there, and I don't know where he is. He's always on the move somewhere. Where are you, General? Are you in North Carolina?
Hey, I'm in North Carolina, getting ready to go to Houston, Texas. So, yeah, I still move around quite a bit. I think it's in our DNA as SF guys that we got to stay on the move and keep you know, a still target is a viable target. So we keep moving.
Well, listen, let's talk about Special Forces Charitable Trust. What is it? What does it do?
Well, the trust is it's 12 years old this year, Clay, and it's an organization that was founded to help during the height of the war on terror. You know, the warriors, the Green Beret, and their families, and then, you know, try to help where there were gaps within the organization's support to those soldiers. You know, the Army and the SF community at large does a great job of helping the soldiers, but there's areas that pop up. So we really focus on building that resiliency with the soldiers and their families, the connections. We do one of our primary programs. It's called a Medal and Moxie, and that's where we take the soldiers and their families for a weekend to just reconnect. We have professional speakers come in, and we work with the command on those areas that the soldiers need, and they think they need help. Financial planning, communication, just those, with the children and communicating and how the children understand it, and then with other children. So it's an area that, we still have SF guys deployed in over 70 countries today. And so as, the nation, we've kind of slowed down and got out of Afghanistan, slowed down a lot in the Middle East. The SF, the Special Forces guys are still out there and, like I said, across the globe, still working every day. And so it's still an important mission. And then about 3 years ago, our executive director, really the suicide piece. And we started really talking about it. She just said, we've got to get after this, and how do we do, and so we came up with a program. Really, she started this. It's called Beyond the Battlefield, and it really gets after what we do with regards to trying to help those soldiers and their families that are having behavioral health issues.
Yeah.
And like last year, the help, that Smoke 'em If You Got 'em last year literally helped pay for over 100 sessions for soldiers and their families to go see a therapist or to get the help they might need. And that's across, not just for the active duty guys, but also the retired,
Yeah.
and then those soldiers transitioning. That's open across the nation. And so it's been a huge endeavor, but it's been one that has, paid great dividends for us. Personally now, I've lost more soldiers to suicide than I did combat, Clay. And so we're proud of the program.
Yeah.
We're not happy that we had to have it, but we're proud of what we've created. And then the help and some of the things that you've done for us have helped us just be able to enhance it and keep it going.
Well, let me just tell you, jumping in here in under 30 seconds, you see it on your screen there. The event's going to be April 28th at Beau Soleil Coastal Cuisine on Jefferson Highway. $100 ticket, and all of the money goes to Special Forces Charitable Trust. Our presenting sponsor, as you see, is Mockler Beverage. Geico Insurance is involved. Don Juan Cigar Bar, Pest Stop, obviously CYE as well. And again, all of the money benefits this great organization. You'll be hearing more about it as we approach April 28th. General, safe travels to you, brother. Can't wait to be with you again as we do Smoke 'em If You Got 'em, the 2024 edition. See y'all next week.
Thanks, Clay. I can't wait. I love Baton Rouge.